So the plan this week was to talk hoops again because it's been a while since I shared the latest going on in the basketball world. But that had to take a back seat because I have a special song breakdown for you today. So special, in fact, we not going back in time like we usually do. Nah, we staying right here in the present. And after years of 4 Bar Friday entries and features, years of telling close friends of mine that I would never, ever make music, yours truly, finally, has a feature on a song that is out now. Yes, the song is out today. Of course, my stubborn butt had to learn never say never the hard way. But as we discussed on the Music Buds podcast when I made my appearance on that show, my guy Jay Powell followed through on his efforts for us to get on a song together. And so I figured it was only right that we both dive deep into this single that we've collaborated on called The Days, produced by L. Summers. So without further ado, join Jerrell and I as we unpack a track that's all about reflection, both personal and hip hop reflections, in hopes that the overall message would resonate with you as well. Welcome to episode 79 of Hip to the Games. And I am privileged to be joined by a fellow podcaster, producer, rapper. I mean, he's got a lot of hats on in this moment in time. The great Jarrell Powell, no relation, but I guess relation in hip hop, of course.
Right.
Welcome to H2DG for the first time, brother. You ready to get in our breakdown today?
I sure am. I appreciate the intro too, man. It's funny. You never really know how much you really do until someone says it.
Welcome to Hip to the Games, the podcast for you, the basketball junkie and the hip hop head. I'm your host, Desmond, and I too have had hoop dreams and enjoy the beautiful genre of hip hop and its history. Together, we will enjoy some of the greatest albums, songs, artists, players, moments, teams, and so much more, while even mixing the two on occasion, all in my hope that you remember why you love both or either of these to begin with. You'll soon understand that Hip to the Games is more than just a podcast. It's a lifestyle. And if you were looking for a platform that combines both basketball and hip hop, you've come to the right place. But of course, welcome back to another episode of Hip to the Games. If you are a loyal fan, I want to say welcome back. It means a lot that you continue to tune in. And if you happen to be new here, welcome. It is a joy to have you on board as well. And as always, before we get into today's episode, first things first, I got to give my pregame shout outs real quick. The first one always going to the creative director, Jesus Christ, for another H2DG episode and paving the way every single step. And the second one goes to my 19 Media Group family for the platform and support, as it's always a privilege to represent the home team. Be sure to check out the variety of shows we have on our network and follow any and all things going on with everybody at 19 M Group on Twitter, 19 Media Group on Instagram, YouTube. We got a lot of great independent podcasters hosting shows around sports, music, culture. So I'm sure you can find another teammate of mine to support. And speaking of support, we do have merch in our show notes on those social media pages. I'm definitely sure to keep my merch link in the show notes, so you can find that there if that's how you feel led to support. But of course, any and all support is appreciated and felt on my end. And as we start to get into today's episode, being that it is a song breakdown, if you're new to how I do things on here, you should know that I do keep it clean. And so I will be censoring and even changing words to lyrics that include sexual innuendos, vulgarity, anything that ain't clean. But you better believe me and my guy Jarrell here are going to keep it hip hop, and you will enjoy this episode and leave inspired with a smile and or a reminder of why you love hip hop in the first place. So with all that out the way, we can get into a little bit of the background story on The Days by Jay Powell and your boy Desmond Powell, produced by the president himself, L. Summers. But before we get into The Days itself, obviously, Jarrell, I want our listener here to know a little bit about you and your journey and your origin story and the gifts that you bring to the table. So could you share how your love for hip hop started in the first place?
Yeah. My love for hip hop really started from these media outlets that aren't really as relevant as they used to be. So the radio, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Radio, BT, music videos.
For
and
sure.
even like Pandora, the app Pandora, no, like
Mm.
nobody uses this stuff anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I remember like just like me and my brother watching TV when we were kids and seeing like these countdowns of like top like like rapper music videos and stuff, and just like California Tupac comes up and all this other stuff. And
Uh-huh.
in 991 KGGI, which is like the station in like Victorville but connected to the high desert when we were living out there, and listened to a bunch of like hip hop and stuff there. And every now and then 102.7 Kiss FM. But I feel like that's what really started. And also too, I was the little brother that would steal my older brother's CDs. Like he would buy them and I would take them and borrow them, try not to scratch them in the process. So I got acclimated with a lot of different artists that way too, and then just kind of started crate digging on my own from there. So that's kind of what started as far as just really getting involved into hip hop. My parents weren't really fans of hip hop. My
Mm.
dad used to listen to Big when he was younger, but but yeah, I just kind of started from as far as the music videos, radio, and just kind of whatever my brother listened to, and then figuring out what I like. So
Okay. So how does that play into like geographically? Like where are you from?
I'm from Southern
Okay.
California, Inland Empire. Mostly where I'm from. It's funny because I was thinking about this as well. I grew up in Victorville for like maybe about, I don't know, 7, 8 years or whatnot. Parents got divorced, moved to the Inland Empire in Redlands, California, and then was there for the majority of most of my grade school career, my grade school life, and all that stuff.
Okay.
So definitely Southern California, Inland Empire. I've moved around a few times where it's like, man, like sometimes you get like, where am I? Like I know I'm from California, but like I can't like I'm not like D Skills, where it's a shout to D Skills by the way. He's like born and raised Baltimore,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
it
yeah.
is, you know what I mean? It's it's like I was I've been living around in white neighborhoods for the majority of my life, so it's kind of like a getting just like finding a connection to home in a sense if it's not within the walls of my family, right?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, but I would say Inland Empire, Southern California, born and raised in that regard.
Let me ask you, like, what made you actually want to get involved in music and start making all different kinds of music? Because I know, like I said in the intro, you have many hats. Sometimes it's hip hop, sometimes I would say it's jazz influenced. Talk about all that.
Yeah, this is a long road, but I think it's going to be interesting for the listener.
Let's do it.
I really been interested in music ever since, even from like scores and whatnot. So just from films and whatnot, as far as just really changing a mood. Various songs that just create a mood. If it's not like orchestrated, just songs that are played during a scene, kind of interested me, growing up. As far as getting invested into music myself, I would watch a bunch of YouTube videos of just like various like artists or music videos and whatnot. And my friends in high school, a lot of them were musicians. My friend Brian Guthrie, he was like one of the first. Him and Alex Garcia, they were guitarists, growing up and stuff. And like I witnessed them play guitar and covers and all this stuff. And I was like, man, like I wish I could do that, but like I can't do it. But after high school, I really decided to learn myself. And being a Gemini, I'm like I don't quit. Like I really like I'm going
Respect,
to figure
respect.
this, I'm going to figure this thing out. It's like, yeah, Geminis are crazy, but at least we are determined. But I went down this YouTube rabbit hole of just like some of my favorite guitarists that just really interested me. So as far as like Hendrix, Stevie Wonder, and then
Mm.
even diving into other artists too, Mars Volta, for instance. So all of that just really, like, I did a deep dive, like a super deep dive in YouTube. And yeah, I just fell in love with music and really I taught myself to learn guitar. I didn't really have a teacher. Bought a bunch of books where I was just like, nope, that's not comfortable to play. That's not comfortable to play. And also for those who don't know, which is probably most of you, I'm left-handed, but I learned right-handed guitar.
Mm.
So because this left-handed guitars, one, they're usually made very poorly and they're very hard to find. So I just learned right-handed, and that really got me into as far as playing music. When it came to rap, that was a longer journey. That was a very longer journey. I was not comfortable with my voice for a long time as far as like
Mm.
learning how to rap, because I'm hearing all these artists, like I'm hearing Pharoah Monch, who arguably is my favorite rapper. I'm
Nice.
hearing, I'm hearing Tupac, I'm hearing Nas, I'm hearing Biggie, all these people. I'm like, man, these guys sound so great on the mic, and like I hear myself, I'm just like, God.
Yeah, yeah, that's real. That's real.
And then like these guys have like these like legitimate experiences, like you hear Nas saying sleep is the cousin to death, and I'm like, I'm just waking up and go to school every day, like
Right.
just,
I just had frosted flakes. Like I ain't got nothing
yeah.
much to say.
Exactly. I'm just like, I have to lie if I'm going to do this art. It's like I just didn't know like how like what like even if I did right, what the heck would I talk about to begin with? But I remember even in high school was the first time I freestyled like against somebody,
Oh
and it
wow.
was yeah, and like first I was nervous, but like I did do a lot of rap stuff, just like me and my brothers kind of riffing off each other or whatever, or just like things like that. So I just like made up some stuff and freestyle against this guy, and I think he was just kind of taken back, and like he like choked,
Papa
and I
Doc.
like
You hit him with a Papa Doc.
I like one quote unquote, and my friend reminded me like almost like a decade ago. He was like, remember when you freestyled, you beat that guy? And I said, I won a battle. I was in a battle.
That's funny.
So that kind of started my hip hop rapping interest, but I wasn't really comfortable for my voice for a long time. I tried different ways to do it because it kind of reminded me of like, like Big Boy from Outkast. He had an interview where he wasn't very comfortable with his voice either. He kind of
Mm,
does a certain thing with his stomach to kind of sound a certain way. And I think rapping with D Skills Harris, from DBL and everything, and doing an album with him, Sketches of Pain, or doing another album coming out. Um, that really to me solidified like how like just being more comfortable rapping, and then obviously an honor to rap with like one of the best artists in Baltimore, so
for real. For real. That
it's
had to be a
really
great confidence boost.
exactly, it was an incredible confidence boost, man. And this is when I had a few albums that came out. I Am a Man was a big one because that was kind of like my like Black Lives Matter album pretty much. I was just really angry during those times, and obviously the George Floyd stuff, so it's just like really expressing myself. And I did some rapping quite a bit on that, and I remember I reviewed D Skills' stuff. He checked out some of my music, and I did a remix, and he was like gave me some props, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like legitimate compliments, because I'm I'm not I love every walk of life as far as like race and whatnot, but sometimes when you're a black man rapping and you hear white people say, oh, you sound good, it's like you almost want to check the box of, okay, but if someone who is also an artist and also is a rapper, do they think I'm good? Because if
Right.
they think I'm good, then I can actually check the box, say, okay, I'm good at this, I just need to work harder at it or whatever. So him giving me compliments when it really definitely was an incredible confidence booster. So
That's dope. I appreciate you sharing that because I think of two things as you said that. So uh that takes me back to like when I started radio. And that's when I learned about mic fright. I didn't even know that was a thing. You always hear about stage fright for actors and things of that nature. But I never heard of mic fright before. And that was something that I feel like helped me a little more because I had gotten past that mic fright in radio. I could kind of conquer it in rap. But
mm,
the funny thing about that is that it was still there because it's like, okay, well, radio, I'm talking to people. Rap, I'm talking to people, but in a different way. Like you said, it's a different
right,
bravado, it's a different confidence about you. So you kind of are stuck at a point where you're like, okay, like you said, you're looking at your favorite rappers, and it's like, how do I fit in? How do I fit into that? And I think ultimately, and I think which is something you realized along your journey is like it's cool to be yourself. Like at the end of the day, it's like I'm gonna do what's natural, and I'm gonna try to perfect that. I'm not gonna try to sound
100%.
like them. I'm not gonna try to sound like Nas, because there's already a Nas, but there's one Jerrell, there's one Desmond. So I'm better off giving the world that than a carbon copy of someone else. And then
100%.
I also thought of so the fact it's almost like the fact that you were kind of mentioning how you struggled with finding your place because like of your environment, right? It's almost
Correct.
like that helped you find yourself musically, if that makes sense. Because that's something I kind of touch on a little later.
Mm,
We're going to touch on a little later, but I thought that
mm,
was interesting that even through hip hop, you found that as
yeah.
opposed to like, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Kind of that battle there. I just
Yeah.
noticed as you were talking.
No, you're 100% right, man. And I think some of my, like, when people talk about their influences and stuff, like, there's like the standard, like, like the forefathers of hip hop, people, oh, Nas, Big, all this, but a lot of those people, for me, if I were to really think who really actually influenced how I sound today, I mean, I would say like Action Bronson, like, for one of them,
Ooh,
MF Doom for another one. Pharaoh Monch, definitely, just because of how he raps, and then just linguistically, like, he's just incredible, and like far different from anyone. um and like, I love just the difference of how, what they're saying, and then also, like, when it comes to Action Bronson, like, it's very funny bars, you know what I mean,
yeah.
just like about, like, maybe a little bit about nothing, but just very funny. And that just connected with me. And even like MF Doom, some of the crazy stuff that he was saying, I remember, I probably can't say that because it's for harsh language, but just some of the stuff he would say, like, even my wife would like crack up, like, what is he talking about,
Yeah.
So it's just like, that's a really connected with me, and kind of, yeah, it definitely shaped as far as like what approach that I wanted to take as a rapper, if you will.
That's dope that you mentioned that, because that was actually my next question. So those are some guys that come to mind when you think like influences, those guys specifically.
Definitely. There's another guy too, or two other guys. One, Kev Brown. Are you familiar with Kev Brown?
I no, I can't say that I am.
He's great. He's an incredible producer. He's more of a producer than he is a rapper, but he has a classic album called I Do What I Do.
Mhm.
Amazing, amazing beats, rapping, no swearing. He doesn't swear. But it was such a great album, great feel. Another one was John Robinson. He's another guy, like, underground hip hop, that a lot of people don't know, where he produced a few things from like Ken Starr and things like that. Um, it's just that algorithm, man. Something with that Pandora algorithm just really opened the door to all these people. Then I started listening to like People Under the Stairs, Pete Rock, and I got into all
Mhm.
this other stuff, Sage Francis. So just like this real underground stuff, like, I would even show some of my friends, that are not of the same, like, to my skin color, and it was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool, just like, it's kind of passing it along. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, those are definitely some folks that absolutely helped influence, like, what am I rapping about, so, and then just the stuff that I've made so far. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I think a lot of those guys, the first thing that came to mind, like they're relatable. You mentioned Action Bronson, and it's funny, like I feel like in a sense, you see more about what he does, like with food in his show with the Alchemist, right? Like you see a lot of that
yes,
stuff. But at the end of the day, I think that's what makes him dope. It's like, yeah, he's that guy, but he's this guy too. Like he's
right.
just relatable. Like you could just kick it with him.
He's one
Um,
of to me, like, I can go on a huge tangent with him, but just briefly, like, I feel like, to me, that's one of my favorite shows, because he connects with people you would never see on national television, right? You would never see on the
good
news,
point.
really. He's talking to real people, like, going through like real stuff, but like, he's able to connect with them in a way through food and through humor. Even like Big Body Bess, he's like hilarious. But just like, being able to do that is such a special thing, and that's why it's like, man, like, this is amazing, like, this is how we need to connect as a people, so.
Exactly, exactly. So how would you describe your overall style as an artist? So given everything you've talked about up to this point, how would you describe the art that you bring to the table?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's a combination between just kind of like, just, it's funny. I used to always like be annoyed at this term vibing out, like vibe, like a vibe, my a good friend Preston, who does the Music Buds podcast, and I co host it with him, but he's telling me when we're reviewing these albums, he's like, oh, it has a vibe to it. And I'm like, man, forget a vibe, like, make a good song, but as I listen to some of my projects, like Remember Who You Are is one of my favorite albums I've made, and definitely a vibe, like, definitely, it's a callback to like the 90s era that I grew up in, right? And I always think of like the Roots, Do You Want More, like that type of vibe, like,
Mm,
it's totally my bag. And just really dope beats, Outcasts, just like things that they sound great, but they don't sound typical. They still sound typical, and they're connected to my personality. So it's like a dope flow uniqueness. And then I try to rap about things that, like, obviously they're connected to me, or that there's some type of like lesson that I've learned, or just like something that could be some type of a takeaway, or if it's just something entirely personal, which rarely I incorporate, but I ended up doing it in that album. But those type of things, and it's funny when I do that, when I get compliments, a lot of people they're like, "Oh yeah, that was my favorite song." I'm like, really? Like the one that I talked about my grandpa that passed away? Like that's your favorite song? That's cool. Like, thank you. You know what I mean? Like somebody took something away from it. So I think if I were to describe that my music, it would be just like, to me, it would be hip hop that would be, it would be easy listening for pretty much anybody, but everyone can get something out of it.
Mm,
Because I think
that's
sometimes
good.
for those who are like, they get all the terrible, like awful hip hop through like the radio now, or just like through like the news or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, hip hop's bad." I'm like, hip hop is just as American as the flag that's up here. You know what I mean? So it's just like, like there's a lot of respect to be there, but yeah, as far as like easy listening, sometimes people just need to really listen to what certain people say. Like listen to what the lyrics are. They're not all bad. Some of them are very insightful. You know,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
I think, yeah. So I think I try to do that too, as far as like a lesson. Just like, hey, like this is an American art, and we should be proud of this, and we shouldn't look down on it. Like this is something that is, there's a reason why it's still around, and there's a reason why it used to be the biggest genre in the world.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what I try to take out. Like I want everyone to listen to it and to enjoy it. So
That's a great answer, bro. Because a song that you were rattling off songs, but a song that keeps coming to mind for me is the story of K. Right? It was the story.
oh, facts, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that one, bro. Like it was one of those points in the album. I was like, it kind of like makes your ears perk up, right? Because you
Mm,
realize like, oh, and I feel like the thing about storytelling in hip hop, you always wait for the moment of where it's like, okay, is this a fable or is this a true story? And then I feel like that was one of those songs I'm like, oh, this is real. Like it's dope to
yeah,
hear, it was dope to hear you put like everything on like you said, just everything into that record. So
right.
yeah,
No,
I lob
I
that up to
appreciate
the
that,
listener
bro.
here.
I appreciate that. No, it's funny. It's funny because there was some stuff on there that I had to take down due to personal reasons, but I wanna put the three of the four songs back up there. But yeah, I appreciate that, bro. Yeah, the story of
Yeah,
K, absolutely a real story. And it's funny. Did you catch where the sample was from?
I don't think so. I don't think
So
so.
it's from the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Hmm.
So
And
between the song,
now I'm
yes.
mad that like now maybe I was so into the lyrics, I was like I wasn't even thinking about Miss Lauren for a little bit.
Oh, well, that, I mean, that's a compliment in itself. I appreciate that. But yeah, because when I listened to that record, obviously still one of the greatest records ever made. But after listening to those songs and hearing those classroom interludes, even though they'd be kind of cheesy, but it was really smart, the progression of like how these lessons were, and then the music around it. And it reminded me of like the Cosby Show or something. Just something where it's just like you're trying to get something out of it, you know what I mean? And like a life lesson. But it also like, it was kind of endearing at the same time. And I was like, this is really good. Like, I really like this. And that happens a lot to me when I listen to albums. I'll hear little music that's in almost like a pre-interlude into the next song. And I was like, I want to flip that. So
Mm.
that's what I end up doing for that. But yeah, man, thank you for listening to that. And you're absolutely right, and that was definitely a real story. And it's wild, man. Yeah, I try to, yeah, when it comes to stories and stuff like that, like I try to put my all into it. And I'm glad you got something from it, man.
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, that's what we supposed to do, right? Like I always say, we got quite the responsibility when we pick up that microphone. So it's dope to hear that you know how to use it well.
Yes, sir.
Um, but as we start to lead into the song, "The Days," what is your writing slash creative process like? Do you like to physically write down? Do you go on the iPad, the phone? Like, what's your process like?
I'm too lazy to write down physically. And I have terrible handwriting because I'm left-handed. So I'm a
Fair.
very emotional writer. If I'm like up and abrupt, I can have great writing. If I'm tired, you're gonna see that I'm tired when I'm writing. So I use the phone. I use Google Docs.
Mm.
Google Docs is amazing just because like anything I type, I can save it. And then if like I have to re-record something before I release a project, like it's just right there. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. As far as me writing lyrics, I feel like I have to hear something before I write, or I have to be inspired some way, shape, or form. Like I usually don't like. I'm like, okay, what else do I think about? Da, 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 da. Like something has to really connect with me. So when I did the project, the fire this time with L Summers, shout out to L Summers for president.
No.
Um, you know, he made some really great music that I absolutely connected with. And I remember he was like, man, he's like, I didn't even, he's like, I didn't even think of like having like this, just like what you did with this is crazy. You know what I mean? It's just things really inspire me. And I kind of approach writing from a cinematic point of view. You
Mm,
know, what are we feeling when we're hearing this? What are we seeing in our mind when we're hearing this? You know, I used to read a lot, you know, growing up, and still I need to get back to reading more, but obviously like visualizing what's going on when you're reading, and just I try to have those same type of, you know, those same type of things, just really putting it down into paper. So when L Summers just once again produced the track, you know, and sent it over, and I said, oh, absolutely, like this is definitely, to me, it reminds me of reminiscent of the past time, you know, something where it's like, man, like we need to go back to this, like I remember when this happened.
yeah.
So that's kind of how I start writing, you know. And it's funny, some of like the bars and stuff, sometimes I write and I'm like, yeah, that was a good bar. But then sometimes I'll write and then someone will be like, oh, that was a good bar when you said this. And I was like, that didn't even occur to me.
Yeah.
I was just writing lyrics. Like it just happened to be a bar, you know. Like I remember one of the projects that's coming out very soon. DSL was like, oh, I like that one bar. That was dope. And I was like, oh, I didn't even occur to me. I was just writing, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, definitely from a cinematic point of view is kind of my process.
That's dope. I've never heard that kind of description before, but that makes a lot of sense, especially because you just never know. Is the dopest thing about hip hop? I guess I shouldn't say the dopest, but one of the dopest things about hip hop is the fact that you can hear a beat and ideas can come to your head that you've never even thought of before. Like
Absolutely.
that to me is the most fascinating thing. But I think that's a great segue into getting into the background of the days. So I just kind of want to give a minute to tell my story, at least of kind of
Oh,
how it came about.
please, please. I'm looking forward to it. I'm like, yes, yes, let's
so,
go.
so like obviously we got to take it back to like late November, early December, this past year. So obviously, Jarrell, like I said earlier, we could flip back and forth, but I'm gonna get into my story. So I
Cool.
make my appearance on the Music Buds, right? Like you said, shout out Preston, Fatima, Chris,
Yeah.
everybody. Um, and towards the end, Preston was like, "Hey, like y'all should do a song, like it's Powell and Powell, like it's only right." And me, I don't even think neither one of us had thought of that until he said that. Um,
Right. And by the way, I'm gonna say forget I'll say F you, Preston, for being such a dot connector.
right.
He in hindsight was the reason why I've met Skills and all these other
Oh
people.
yeah,
So
yeah.
he's like, I just want to get some credit, you know,
He's
Preston
like,
always
stop
says,
stealing my
but
folks. I remember he told you.
yeah, he's like, I made you. I'm like, whatever, man. But anyway, please go ahead.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, and mind you, like even when that idea came about, like our listener knows this, and some of my friends know this. Like I made it a personal vow. Like even in college, like I was just only gonna have rap as a hobby. And I don't think I really ever admitted this, but the real reason why I said I would never make music is because like my respect for those who were already doing it was like so high. And so for me, it was like, whether you're super underground or like absolutely famous, like my respect is just there. So, and valuing the authenticity of hip hop, you touched on this earlier. Like, I knew I was never gonna make music about, girls I ain't want to be around or who didn't want to be around me. Like I didn't want to rap from experiences I never had,
Right.
stuff I never touched. You know what I'm saying? Like I never wanted to do that kind of thing. I just knew that I ain't want no cap in my rap. So I was like you said, like, what am I gonna rap about? I
Right.
didn't really think anybody wanted to hear like a 13 track album on like basketball and Bible, because that's what I tend to go for. So
Right on.
I was like, I don't know about that. But I knew I could rap about my values. I knew I could rap about my faith. Kind of what you said. A lot of it is inward, I think, with us. So I knew I could rap about those things. Um, so that's at least what's going through my head. But then I've even had friends try to convince me. My sister tried to hype me up. She's like, "Man, this is what you should be doing. Like, you can
Mhm.
rap." I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And she's like, this is my older sister, so obviously she's gonna have some influence. I'm like, So now I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about that moment was that only you, only that time in that moment, and one of my OGs are the only two people I've told, like, okay, yeah, like I'll do a verse. Like I can't pass that up. And
Wow.
and it was funny because you said, like, Des, like, we can make that happen. Like, obviously, I'm a producer, but I know producers. I know people who got beats. So I'm thinking, like, all right, like, we'll see. But lo and behold, you were a man of your word. You send that joint like 2 days later. You like, yo, Des, like, I think you'll like this beat. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so I listened to it. And I'm thinking ahead of time. Again, Jarrell, having listened to some of your work and kind of the momentum you had at that point, I'm like, okay, he's gonna send me like this super boom bap. Like we are gonna trade. We're gonna pass the mic like Styles and Jada, Redman and Method Man. Like we gonna call that joint Powell versus Powell. Like we are just rearranging people's heads lyrically. Like so, I
And I
was
knew you
like.
did want to do that. You know what I mean? I'm like, this one doesn't want to do that, man. That's funny though. Wow,
So
interesting.
I was like, we are about to make like this crazy record. Um, but then when I listened to the beat, I was like, oh, this is a different bag. And again, you touched on this earlier, like Jarrell wants me to talk. Like we not just rapping just to rap, like we talking. So I was like, we not gonna rip this beat up lyrically. I mean, we are, but we're not. You know what
Right,
I
right, right,
mean? So I'm
right.
like, we got to get on our De La Soul. '06 Common, Kanye. I got to get a little less in my gangstar mode and a little more in the Blue and Exile.
There you
So,
go. There you go. There you go.
so
Absolutely.
I was feeling that, like you said, I listened to the beat and I too was feeling the same things, and it came at a time where like creatively I was kind of in a dead space, and that's why I told you, like, yo, Jarrell, like I appreciate this, but you really might not hear from me for a very long time, like because I had gotten that mode where I was like, I feel like I've used all my bars that I wanted to express.
Right.
Um, and but then I went to bed that night. It was one of those things like, man, just turn the beat on again. And I'm just laying in bed and I went to work. Everything just started flowing. And I didn't like it at first. Again, kind of like what you said. I didn't like I
Yeah.
was like pretty much done and I didn't like it.
Mm.
But then the next day I was essentially already practicing the verse and I started to fall in love with it more and more. And it's funny how hip hop can do that where you write something and it's like it's probably not my best, but then it's like you make it your best. You learn to make it your best. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of where I was. And I was like, yeah, this is it right here. Like, this is the one I got to do. So I'll speak more on my process, obviously, as we get into the bars, but I
Yeah.
definitely want to pass it to
Wow.
you and share how, your build up was.
Man, no, that's so interesting. I wonder what was there anything, I guess before I continue on like with what you said, what do you think it was? I guess it's like because you said there's only two people that kind of like changed like your mind on like actually like going forward to do that. Was it just as far as just like what you said when it came to just kind of like the music and how that it kind of maybe related to as far as just like oh like I can see myself actually writing to this. Was that kind of like the big motivator? Because I know you said you had a few people that said, "Man, you should be rapping." You're like, "Ah, man."
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question because I never even really thought of it that way. I felt
Mhm.
like it was just one of those things, like obviously, like that idea that we came up with. I mean, that's fire. Like I can't pass up, Powell and Powell. Like I can't pass that up. But then it was also, I think, some of that too. Like I had respect for you as an artist. I knew that we kind of cut from the same cloth. We had the same kind of circle of artist friends. Like, so I'm like, this is somebody I could trust with to like we would both do this thing justice. Same thing with my OG. Like he literally is from that era. So it's like, though to me it's just a no-brainer. Like if they really want me to do it, like I'll do it. Like I won't just hold back and be that selfish. But it's really funny that you asked that though, because I don't really know what it is, man. I think it might even just be that deep knowing everybody talks about. Like sometimes it's almost like you don't make the decision. It's like the decision is made for you. There's like an inner, guidance there.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, man. I think one thing I learned too, I think this is even just me like doing like band practice and all this stuff or getting involved in a band and really understanding like people's creative process and being patient with it as well. Like I remember like working with skills and stuff when it came to like sketches of pain and then this, even this recent project or how L Summers does music. And And I've just learned so much as far as like, really paying attention to like what would really be a good fit. And then if you're working with someone, like you can't, like I tend to write, when I do write it, I tend to write kind of fast sometimes. Like for the Fire Next Time, we did like 10 songs or whatever it was. I wrote those pretty quickly, but I don't expect other people to write as fast as I do. Everyone has their process. I know Nas, he takes a long time to write. He doesn't write immediately quick, and I think Pharoah Monch takes a long time to write too.
Mhm.
um so the game, he can write something in 10, 12 minutes, and record, but for me, like I just had to understand, like, let people be a part of the creative process and wait. So that's when you email me and say, hey, like, it's gonna take me some time. I'm like, cool, absolutely. I'm like, this ain't gonna feed my family for one. And two, it's like I want to respect your process too, because that's just what a good person does when you work with somebody else creatively. So I totally understood that for real. So
Yeah, that's another good point. That's another good point. So, but did you have? So, what were your thoughts, kind of like from that moment on the music buds, and then like to the time we pretty much had the song almost finished?
man, it's funny. This is during the time where I think the Rap Chat podcast that I do with the guys too, we're talking about Little Brother a lot. And I think the May the Lord Watch doc was like coming out or something like
Oh
that. And we're
yeah.
talking about that. I was getting into Little Brother again. We had another conversation about Little Brother and the listening, and how Ninth Wonder needs to go back to FL to produce, but that's a topic for another day. But I was just like listening, just like hearing like Fonte and Big Pooh, just like, man, like the stuff is so, like, it's just so amazing, And hearing, I remember I was talking to El Summers, and he was like, oh, let's check out this beat I'm working on. And it just totally like just like took me back, like literally, like mentally, from a time perspective, and just thinking about how people like listen to music and like retain like hip hop now, and what their definition is of hip hop. Because I feel like today's generation of hip hop is completely different from what an old head's definition of hip hop is. And just like, man, like there's so many gems like that we have, and that like our old heads have, that like I wish that we could present that to a newer generation, to get this, to preserve this thing called hip hop, right? So like those are the literal things in my brain when I was hearing this beat. I'm just like, these chords were so reminiscent, the synth and stuff. And I was, because he made like this, and like it cut into something else. I was like, I need that, El Summers. So it was like, all right, so he cut that in half, and then he sent something else to me, I think, as well, which I need to look back at. But yeah, this one I was like, this is absolutely just something is resonating with me on this. But it took me maybe 2 days to write, I think,
Okay.
because I really wanted to. It was one of those things where it's like, I need to see what do I want to communicate here, So sometimes I get these weird like ideas middle of the night too. I'll just be like,
Yeah.
thinking, and I'm like, yo, I have a verse, and I have to grab my phone and put it in. And my wife's like, what are you doing on your phone? It's 2 a.m. I'm like, I have a verse idea.
Right, right, right. Yeah. Like, please, like, let a
Yeah,
master
please.
cook. Let me cook.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
let me
Yeah, it's
cook.
like, I'm working here. But yeah, it's just, it just sometimes it just comes to me, just randomly, and I was just like, I want to take some time with this, because this is a great piece of music. So that was kind of like how everything worked with me, and I was happy too, because I purchased a new microphone, an older microphone, but new to me, that just
Okay.
worked with my voice better. Like
Nice.
yeah, I'm so particular on find, like, I'm just like a geek nerd guy. Like I took a different microphone capsule and put it into this one that I'm talking to you right now, because I was like, oh, I don't like this one. Let me find
Oh,
another one. So I'm very nerdy, but I like the microphone that I was using, or that I purchased, because I was like, I'm making like an album and a half. Like I need to do something, like I need to find something that's going to represent my voice and me as an artist the best way. Like I take it that seriously. So
that's
I was
awesome.
happy that I had that, and I was like, yes, like, let me write this stuff down, let me record. And yeah, man, that's kind of how that happened, and for some reason, that hook, I was just like, yeah, this is what it is, remember the days, like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That. That's dope. And of course, we've done it already, but we got to give a big shout out to L Summers, man, because that beat, like you said, it's so simple, but it could just go on forever, man. It could go on
Absolutely.
forever. And, you know, uh, like, and what you were saying about your influences, it was the same thing for me, man. Like being
Mm.
from Illinois, like I remember being a kid and like you said, watching those music videos, and it's like I would always see Kanye and Common, obviously because they were working together, but it was like, and
Oh
they're
yeah.
from Chicago, like so being in Illinois, it was like those were the closest I could get. Being in the
Mm.
Midwest, hip hop kind of comes to us. Like we get like a piece of everybody, but to have those two like giants, they were like giants to me. So, and immediately when I heard this beat, I'm like, this is like 96, 94, Common, oh
Yes.
06, like whatever you want to put on there. So, I kind of just took what I heard a lot, at least what I felt I heard a lot as a kid, and the kind of sound that I kind of took on those early years of my life and just kind of put that pressure on myself to do it justice. So we're definitely going to get into the song here in a minute.
Cool.
So there's the background for it, which means it's time to get into the actual breakdown of the days.
I mean, if you take those lyrics and you pull them away from the music and you put them up on the wall somewhere and someone had to look at them, they would say, well, this is genius. This is genius work.
All right, so after that beat kicks in, we get the hook first, and I know you're about to get into this, Jarrell. Now, would you
Yeah.
like to do the honors of reciting or reading, kind of whatever you feel like doing, that hook for our
Yeah,
listeners?
yeah. I mean, I'll censor it too since I'm swearing these days.
Got you, got you. And
It's
then
fun.
as you were saying too, and then you can read it and then just go all in with your thought process and how you came up with that.
Okay, okay, for sure. Yeah, so I guess too, before I start, since I'm gonna be censoring this, like as far as like my process in writing and rapping too, like as far as we talked about as far as like wanting to represent ourselves the best way possible when we rap and whatnot, right?
Hmm.
Like for me in general, like if you listen to all my music, like I don't say the N word in my music, and like for whoever does, that's fine. Like that, I don't that like I'm not someone who's like, oh, you should stop. Like no, I'm not that kind of person. But to me, it's like if I'm gonna rap, I'm gonna rap and present myself how I would be if someone sees me. So like I swear. So that's why I swear in my verses. Do I say the N word? No, not really, because I have friends of all walks of life, and I feel like there's a special connection when you have people of the same ilk or whatever that share that, and it's just a very special, specific thing. So I'm just
Hmm.
like like yeah, I'm just gonna be myself.
Sky Zoo
Um,
does the same thing. He said he does the same thing.
yeah.
He doesn't say it either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's just like yeah, and I'm a huge fan of Sky Zoo too. Oh my
Yeah.
god, the Retropolitan, the oh my god, Pete Rock, jeez, Sky Zoo, Pete Rock, oh my gosh, amazing. Anyway, but yeah, as far as the verse, remember the days when we fell in love with this rap ish. Now it seems like it's just all going backwards, trying to get to the green. The Tiger Woods at the Masters. Some days I want to quit, but it keeps calling me right back. So like, I feel like when it comes to like the art of rap, I just think as far as how the hook of me of when I was writing this, I just feel like sometimes you kind of forget like there's just a lot of people that do this and it's not for passion,
Mhm.
and it's everyone's prerogative, but it's just like I remember when people did this because this is what they wanted to do, like, and this is like if they're passionate about it,
Right.
and I just feel like you get different lyrics and different outputs versus someone who literally just does it just to get a bag. And like at this point, we've seen interviews and
Mhm.
heard interviews where people just do it to get a bag. And it's different when you
Yeah.
actually love this, right? And then it's like now it seems like it's just all going backwards, kind of a testament to that. We're now trying to get to the green, like Tiger Woods at the Masters again. Everything's about money now, and then also on the second part of the spectrum, like everyone's trying to eat, because they're passionate about it. You know what I mean? So it's kind
That's
of like
true.
a dual thing there that I was kind of thinking about when I was writing that. And then like some days I want to quit, but it keeps calling me right back. That's kind of like a ode to I think it's a Jay-Z song. I think it's in the Black album. Keep calling me right back, like
Oh, are you
this
talking
is
about Allure?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think
I
so.
think.
It's one with the least. It's one with the beat that I liked the least on the album. But I just remember that hook, "Call me right back," and um, it's just, again, that kind of passion connection that takes you back. And then also, like they say, rappers never really retire. They're just on the whole. They say they retire, but like they never really stop being
Very
rappers.
true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's facts. That's facts. Every time somebody announces their retirement, I'd be like, "No, you're not. We'll see
Right.
you we'll see you in like 9 months."
Right. Right. Like I remember there's a time it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, because I remember too, I did some verses with Skills, just like for a certain singles or certain projects he was doing. And I remember posting something on Instagram and I was like, I'm not a rapper, but when I am, and my friend Corey, he responded to my story on Instagram. He's like, "You're a freaking liar." He's like, "Yes, you are. You are a rapper." I was like, "Oh, thanks, man." So yeah, because he just gets it. But did you want me to continue the breakdown for my verse, or
Yes, but I just wanted to say real quick the dope thing about that hook, and I messaged you this right away. Like it took me a minute to realize it, but I really love that part, getting to the green like Tiger at the Masters, because it's like you said, it's getting to the green, getting to the money, but it's also getting to
right,
the green. That's the sweet spot in golf. And
right,
and same thing, like you said, people want to get to that. It's almost like they chase that sweet spot more than they just chase like the natural passions of what they do. And
right.
then it's like get to the green, which is an obvious reference to the jacket the winner of the Masters gets. So that was some dope wordplay right there too.
Thank you, man. Thank
Yeah,
you. I
of
appreciate
course,
that.
of course. So
Um, so yeah, so I started with just, back to the basics, where beats and rhymes are the reason why I made it. So just like the kind of like the callback of like like what connected me to this music in general. And typically it was a great beat, or it was some type of rhyme that connected. It was something that Ninth Wonder made, as far as the beats that he was making, me listening growing up. And like just like even from like random fragments, there's like random fragments of hip hop that just connects to me, and really just kind of push that passion forward. Like I remember, it was a random thing, but Ninth Wonder and Buckshot, the Formula, like
mhm.
they did like a 3-part album series, and the
Mm.
Formula was one of them. And I was like, man, these beats are amazing. Like the rhymes are dope. And then obviously like all the other like other great lyricists. So that was kind of the connection as far as the back to the basics for beats and rhymes, the reason why I made it.
And I
The
like
flow.
that. I like that because it's like if you're gonna call it out on the hook, I'm gonna show you why, like the other side of that, where it's coming
Right.
from. So I like that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Mhm.
And I say my flow is like the Nile that I decided to put my face in. So just kind of like getting myself out there. Like if I'm gonna rap, I'm gonna rap.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
If I'm gonna rap, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna, because again, there's kind of like that fear as far as like, is this what I want to do? I don't know how I sound, So then just kind of get stirring up the courage. Like, yeah, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna put my face in the water. I'm gonna get this flow on. So
That's
kind of
dope.
where
I didn't really catch that at first. I was like, I'm like, I know there's something there, but for some reason it just wasn't clicking. But now I see like,
yeah.
putting your face in the water is different than putting your toe in,
Right.
like, so
Right.
it's
Yeah.
definitely
You
the
start
all in
seeing
effort.
different things, what I'm
Yeah, yeah.
saying? So yeah, that's kind of where that comes from. When other MCs rap, I yawn because it's contagious. Defeated Alec Rhythm with wax songs on their playlist. So it's funny thing that I like to do is like I like to call out rappers that don't exist. And part of that is like, man, I don't want any problems today because I'm in Southern California and people respond very, very violently. But
Hey, cuz, you
right.
wanted that?
But it's like, but I'm just like, for those of you who you think you're dope, I'm not calling you out, but I'm calling you out. So like I like doing that. I do that quite a bit on skills and stuff. I'm just like, I'm gonna call out people that don't exist. um but like when I say like I yawn because it's contagious, it's like everyone sounds the same. Everyone has a similar thing, so it's not just like people are rapping the same genre. People literally are sounding like the same people, like
Yeah.
as much as we don't, as much as like certain people don't like Drake, right? Like there is a lot of people that sounded like Drake after Drake was doing his thing. A lot of people sounded
Yes.
like, right? A lot of people sound like a mad other artist. And
And even
it's
people that were like with him, like the same kind of trajectory as him, were copying him.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So it's just like even when he changed how he did music or did like he did more of the R&B stuff or whatever, like a lot of people pivoted that way. So it's just like, man, like, you know, like everyone's tastes, everyone's sounding the same. And then they feed the algorithm with whack songs on their playlist. It's like now everyone's chasing the stream, chasing the money. You know, they're just chasing something that is going to be caught in the playlist, caught within the algorithm. You know, they're serving the algorithm versus serving the song in itself. So
Mm.
that was kind of my reasoning for that, as far as like, you know, they're not really feeding the actual art. You know, it's like they're just doing it for what's going to be popular.
Yeah. Yeah. So
uh,
I also want to ask too, the yawn because it's contagious. Was that also a nod at the fact that like yawns are contagious?
yes.
Okay, okay, okay. And
Yes.
and that was something I didn't think about until like I was preparing this episode, and I was like, wait a minute, because that took me back to like I think
Mhm.
I was in fourth grade when like I remember my teacher told us about that. She was like, like stop looking at each other when y'all yawn, because like now everybody's gonna be yawning. I'm like, what is she talking
Right.
about? But then I seen somebody yawned, and lo and behold, somebody else did. And I'm like, oh, that is like
Right.
actually true. So then when I listened to it over and over again, I heard that, and I was like, it took me right back to that moment. So I thought that was funny.
Absolutely.
I just
No,
wanted to make sure
yeah.
I caught that was right.
No. That absolutely is connected too. Yeah, because like, I mean, it's funny. I've witnessed that like digitally, like someone yawning on Zoom and someone else yawns. I'm like,
Oh.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That you had to be in the same room anyway.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you.
Yeah, that's wild. And then the next line say, now they're paying us in streams like waters for chocolate. I'll stop there because there's kind of a lot with that too. So
Yeah,
like,
dope line. Dope line.
oh, thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. So like, it's kind of like it could be considered a double entendre, but there's double meaning. So like, you know, I guess the term for water for chocolate, because like that line just kind of came out when I wrote it, and I was like, there's a I feel like this can be connected in a way. And I guess the term water for chocolate, it's from another novel, but I guess the term is like it's like you're hitting like a boiling point, almost to the point of like a kind of pushing it to the point of a boiling point when it comes to like you know, if you're making like hot chocolate or whatever, but it's boiling so hot or to the point where, you know, it's like water for chocolate, like it's gonna boil over.
Mm,
And then I thought of Common's, you know, classic album Water for Chocolate,
right.
right? Like you're pushing us to this point, you know what I mean, of just like, racism and oppression and all this stuff. And the verse, as far as like now they're paying us for streams like Water for Chocolate, where it's just like you know how much this stuff is actually worth this stream, and you don't care, like it's a tenth, a thousandth of a percent, you know. It's like, and that's okay with y'all, you know.
Mhm.
And you expect us to be okay with it, and like we're hitting a breaking point, we're like, no, this is not acceptable, you know. So that was kind of the reasoning for that,
Nice.
for
Nice.
that bar there. And then, so, you know, one day we're going to storm in that label head's office and demand what we deserve, which is way beyond profit. Own our masters again instead of trusting the process. This one's interesting. I feel like I might have contradicted myself slightly, but I guess my reasoning behind it was like, I feel like sometimes there's label there when we needed labels, right, back in the day, like, you know, we
Mhm.
were told to trust the process. Oh, we got you, we're gonna get you going, we're gonna make you, you know, we're gonna make you a millionaire or make you famous or whatever, and we trusted them. But then there's a lot of people that had no ownership in anything, and their literal monetary value was just like, oh, like I get to stay in a really nice hotel, but I'm not making anything from my touring, I'm not making anything from my music, like that's wrong, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's why I put, you know, as far as owner matches against trusting the process, we're like, when it comes to trusting the process and making like for yourself internally, like, yeah, trust the process. But when it comes to like putting your trust in a label, it's like clearly labels can't be trusted anymore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I
Yeah.
was like, no, we
Word
need
to
to order.
TLC, word to New Edition, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. A long list, right? Long list. So that was the reason for that. Then the next line I put, it said hip hop is like COVID. Some people died from it and some profited more from their entire lives from it. And I thought that as I was driving, I was like, oh man, I was like, I wonder if that's gonna sting. But I just thought about, as far as like, you know, first I literally thought about COVID, where like, you know, like it was like more people died than like all of the wars combined, and like when it came to the actual COVID virus, but then there are people that like were like they went into an e-commerce business and they made hundreds of thousands, if
Yeah.
not more. Like literally, like people were like taking advantage of like those loans that you shouldn't use improperly, that most people used improperly, the PPP loan or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I know some people had to do is like, yo, like we need to eat. Like let's just use this. But I guess the reason for the hip hop notion is like you can, depending on how you move within this culture and move within hip hop, like you want to be smart about it. Some people they do things very carelessly, and to a point where, hey, like there's a way you can do this without making it to where you're affecting your life and whoever around you. I remember Skills, he always says, as far as like for some people that he talks about in general, they'll say like, hey, like if they can't find you, they'll find everyone around you. So it's like, it's very like, be very careful, what you do and what you say and things like that. And you know so yeah, so that's kind of the notion around that, as far as like, you can make a lot of money from this. You can, like, for example, Chance the Rapper, he made like 6 million off of his three hat, that three hat he used to
Oh,
wear.
yeah.
But like
Yeah.
he trademarked the three, cut it up or whatever, and
Yeah.
sold it and made $6 million. Like I remember he said that Joe Bud podcast, and Joe Bud, like, he like walked off the walked off the
Naturally.
set.
Naturally.
Yeah, he's like, what? Exactly, naturally. That's what he does. So it's just, yeah, like, and then the next line.
Wait, I did want to stop there real quick
Go ahead.
because I was gonna say that is definitely my favorite line, probably my favorite line on your verse. Because
Oh, thank you, man.
yeah, man, because it's like it's that moment where the artist says something so true, you got to pause the song. Like I think it's one of those moments. It's like, dang, like you're right, and I think too, kind of to what you were saying, even if it's not inherently negative, just real. Like for example, like business wise, but not genre wise, business wise. To me, rap is just hip hop in the wrong hands. So like the guys in suits
Ooh,
promote the rap beefs, you know what I'm saying? When the streets probably deep down they want it squashed, but it's like, well, this is kind of we got to ride that momentum. You think about East
right.
Coast, West Coast. I know there were some guys in that circle who were probably like, this is kind of well, this is good publicity for us. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we could ride this, like let's kind of stretch this out as long as we can. And then, but then if it goes too far, it's now, oh, hip hop's negative, hip hop, but they were pushing it in the first place.
Exactly.
And then I think you look at somebody like Lil Pump, like, his 15 minutes of fame was crazy, even though his music wasn't that good. Like
Yeah.
that was such a weird time in rap slash hip hop. And he really didn't do anything wrong. He was just making the music he felt like he could make, but it turned into this big old thing. Um,
Yeah.
and it kind of just what happened. But I think it's the same thing with COVID. Like that was a rough year for a lot of people. And yet, but then even look at like the face mask business, toiletries, like
Yeah.
that was a blessing for somebody's family, right? Like
Right.
the fact that
Right.
that happened and now all this money's coming in. So it was almost like it was an unfortunate time for someone else, but at the same time, for somebody else, business is booming.
Right.
And like whether that was bad intentions or just circumstance, like that statement is just a cold hard truth.
Oh, thank you, bro. I
Yeah,
appreciate that. I
for
appreciate
sure.
that. No, you're absolutely right, bro. Yeah, I remember Homeland Security was trying to track down this company that made these fake N95 masks. They made like over $2 million selling them. Like these are
Wow.
not legitimate N95 masks. And I was like, oh, like, so you absolutely right. Great points you made.
Yeah.
Yeah, then it said, "Oh, if you survive, tell your story and shine from it, but don't take it for granted, or don't get neglected with your pride, homie." So as far as just like when it comes to whatever your blessings are, like, yeah, like like acknowledge and be grateful, but then obviously when it comes to just pride, as we know, and as the good book says, pride's a killer, right? You know what I mean? Pride can be one of the worst detriments, and we've seen that from a large amount of artists, unfortunately, and then for
Mhm.
those who are still here, a lot of their tunes have changed. Like I'm living in an era where 50 Cent is apologizing to people. you know
Facts. Facts,
I'm
yo.
like, he's like, yo, man, we should be. I'm like, what? I was like, this man needs to apologize to
50
Lloyd
Cent the
Banks.
peacemaker.
Like,
Like
yeah, Lloyd Banks, Tony A, all of G Unit. Like, I was like, what is going on? But I get it. It's like you're absolutely right. These types of beefs, they're absolutely fueled and they're profitable, and it's a marketing tactic, and they just kind of let the conveyor belt flow. And you're
yeah.
absolutely right. So it's just like, yeah, don't take what your successes are for granted. So yeah, man, that was my verse. I'm looking forward to you breaking down your verse, bro.
Oh yeah, yeah, man. But so with the let's do this, Drew. At the end of that, what would you say is like, what if you could pick a theme for your verse? What would you say
Yeah.
that theme is?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, Geez, a theme. Um, I think I really feel like it touches on a few different if to me it touches on a few different points, but it kind of connects all together. So like
Mm.
the first part of my verse is like, if you're passionate about it, and if you're authentic about, like, if you're authentically passionate about it, like, do it,
Mm.
and don't be shy away from it. Like, if this is something you have a passion to do, like, leap forward, take the chance, do it. um and then uh and then I would say the next part of it also is kind of the opposite, where there are people in the industry that do not, and they use it as a money machine, and they're not authentic to themselves. So like the first theme is like, be authentic to yourselves, and then the second part of it is because there's people that do not.
Very
um
true. Mm.
and then also another theme is as far as like how the industry doesn't care if you're authentic or not. They just want to make money, but they don't want you to really be successful. They want to be successful, but just utilize you. So
Yeah.
as far as like paying us for streams, water for chocolate, and all that stuff. And then the last part is really just when it comes to hip hop, like you can still shine from your success, but then also, like, what do you want that success, how do you want to use, like, that success in the future? Like, do you want to pass the baton? Like, who
Mm.
else do you want to support within this, right? um like, I respect the high, there's so many people that I respect that they don't really like, it's like, hey, look at this, I'm giving a turkey to another neighborhood, like Moral Technique, like he's a legit philanthropist for real, like
Yeah, man.
he's gone overseas, he's gone in really dangerous neighborhoods to give food, he really fights for the people, like, and I hold so definitely respect that to its entirety, you know and they're not super vocal about it, but they're vocal about other things. But it's just like, those are, what do you want to do with your success? Like, do you just want to just be prideful and be like, I'm successful,
Yeah.
like, or do
Yeah.
you want to do something?
Oh, look at
So
look at I got my 1,000 chain sent to me. You know what I'm saying?
right, right,
Like,
it's like, exactly. And not, then I never realized, like, oh man, wait, you mean I can get beat up from this? Yes. I remember when Skills, really quick. I remember when Skills was like, was telling me the reasoning behind like why people wear chains, and it's like a sign of respect and stuff, and being able to wear it in public is like, that's a whole other sign in its entirety. I'm like, I 100% agree. However, in Southern California, that doesn't matter. Because the rent's too high and everything's too expensive, and somebody got to eat. So it's just like, yeah. So yeah, man. That's, I would say it would be several themes, but those would be the ones that I would kind of culminate with and everything.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm glad our listener can, again, man, it just goes back to the entire theme of the song. Like that is why we love hip hop. You can take all of those meanings and apply them whichever way you want to. So that's awesome that you were able to create that. And so after Jarrell's verse and the second rendition of the hook, we'll get into my verse. But before that, I just want to remind you that if you like what you're hearing so far, here's one way you can support Hip to the Games. As a fan of Hip to the Games, not only should you show your love for the podcast, but you gotta express your love for basketball and hip hop. With a wide variety of clothing and accessories, there is always a way to show how much the game of basketball and the game of rap means to you. Let everybody know what it means to be hip to the games by clicking the link in the episode's description to cop some merch and represent the H2DG lifestyle. All right, welcome back to episode 79 of Hip to the Games, where we're going to pick it right off with our the day's breakdown going into my verse. So as we transition to my verse, while Jerrell did some reflection on the music industry and like the state of hip hop overall, my reflection was a bit more personal. And like the funny thing about my verse was like all I could think about was how do I introduce myself to the people, right? Like I already had
Right.
shared my rap journey, like I was really only doing Instagram freestyles and I thought that was like all it was going to be, but
Mm,
now it's like this is my first recorded, mixed, mastered track and it's a feature. And so like I got to give you some kind of intro that would either make you want to hear more or make you forget or make you not forget what you heard or even both.
right.
And funny enough, like I said earlier, as I was laying in bed writing this, I just flow with it. And this is definitely one of those verses, kind of what you said, that kind of take like anywhere from like 10 to 30 minutes to either write and perfect or however you want to go into that. So right off the bat, I start with this. Truthfully, I want to rhyme like common sense, yet I struggle trying to muster up the confidence. So, like, that's exactly where I was in the moment writing this song.
Mm,
Like, like I said, all I could do was like go inward in the moment. And like, I literally tell you, like, yeah, like when I heard that beat from L Summers, I'm like, this takes me back to young Common.
mm.
And like, I wish I could rap like him right now. Like,
Right, right,
like,
right.
like,
That's so funny because I was thinking about when Jay-Z said that, talking about Common.
right, right,
That,
right, all right. I
yeah,
was
when he's
thinking
like,
about
just
that
around
too.
common sense like a 5 mil, but I around like common sense, like, oh man.
Exactly, exactly. So my thing was like, if I'm gonna kill this beat, I want to do it like I've heard Common do it so many times. But obviously, like Jarrell just said, if you're a fan of H2DG, if you're a fan of hip hop, you caught that nod to Jay-Z as well.
Yep.
Because how he said in Moment of Clarity, like, truthfully, I want to rhyme like common sense. I did 5 mil. I ain't been rapping like common sense. When your sense got that much in common and you've been hustling since your
Sense.
inception, bump perception, go with what makes
Makes
sense. That is like crazy. So Jay did that same thing, right? Using Common's original rap name to get his point across. So it's like really genius stuff from Jay. So it was dope that I was able to kind of apply that same method because when I thought of that, I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna use that line, but if I can circle it back in some way, I'm gonna try to do it. So we'll get to that towards the end of the verse, but that's really all it was. Like I'm telling you, like, hey, this is my first time officially recording a rap, and this is how I dream of it being. Yet I'm nervous because I never did this before. That's really what I'm saying right there.
Mm,
So then my reflection continues as I open up more about the challenges of mustering up that confidence. So how my wrists say faith over fear when my fears seem to be the only thoughts that my ears want to hear. So every day, I don't know if I could put in the camera, but every day I wear this wristband right here. It says, oh, that's the other side. Hold on. It says faith over fear. I wear it every
mm.
day. I don't take it off. It's made by Active Faith. It's like the same one Steph Curry, Jeremy Lin used to wear them when he was
Oh
playing.
wow.
A lot of those guys wear those bracelets, and fear is something that I always kind of gravitate to. Like I don't really know why, but I think it's because it's one of those things. Like I'm somebody that I tend to believe in myself a lot, but at the same time, I struggle so much with doubt and limiting beliefs. It's like, for example, I was crazy enough to believe I genuinely believed I was going to be in the NBA, right? But at
Mm,
this age when I was younger, but then I would, at the same time, I would step out on those same courts in front of competition and I would shrink, right? And I'd see the taller players or maybe the guy that has a better jump shot or a better handle, and I would shrink. And so I'm immediately comparing myself and all those things. So the same is happening right now. I'm kind of taking you through my mental process. Like, dang, how do I wear this wristband every
mm.
day to try to inspire me, but I can barely apply it to my life? So
Wow.
I proclaim faith over fear, yet the whole time all I can focus on is my fear. So that's
Is
why I
fear.
say, yeah. So that's why I say that's all my ears want to hear because
Mm,
I forget the faith part at that point. It's like all the focus becomes the fear.
mm.
And if you're like me, what can fear often lead to? Overthinking. So then that goes right into the next bars. The next like 6 bars are all like a string of overthinking thoughts. So it goes steady scheming, plotting on how to be a star. But can a bench player even get that far? Will they feel what I'm saying when I spit that bar? Can't afford a triple bogey, gotta be up to par. There I go, caught up living lavish in my head. That's what happens when I don't get my dose of daily bread. So here like I said, I acknowledge those thoughts while getting to the roots. Like I say, I'm a dreamer, so my head is always in the clouds. So when I say I'm plotting on how to be a star, again, that doesn't necessarily mean like the fame and riches that come with hip hop, right? Like for me, I just use star to represent just the general idea of success. Um, Happiness and joy. That's kind of my definition. Genuine fulfillment, right? A little street cred and props is cool, right? Right, Jerrell, but like,
Yeah.
but it's not even just the glamorous things, it's just my definition of success.
Mm,
And, of course, I had to get into my hip to the games bag a little bit and just show you the other side of those dreams, right? Like,
yeah.
so I take you through that cycle. Can a bench player even get that far, right? Is it possible for the 13th guy on the bench to become an MVP, right? That's kind of where my mind is at.
I really dug that bar, by the way. I was like, oh snap, him to
Yeah,
the games.
appreciate that, bro. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's just the idea that like something that feels so far away. And then it's like, dang, like if this song drops, will people really feel me? Will my words resonate with people the same way I like how my favorite artists resonate with me? And then I say, can't afford a triple bogey, gotta be up to par, which is dope because Jarrell didn't even send me the hook yet. And yet he mentions in the hook, right? Like get to the green like Tiger Woods at the Masters. And here I am with a golf bar. Like I felt like you and I had so many connections there. I'm talking about
Right.
my inspiration for
Wow.
Common. You mentioned like Water for Chocolate. Like it was crazy that we weren't even in the same room or nothing.
Right.
And we just had those natural connections there.
Must be the Powell.
It gotta be. Gotta be.
Must be the last name. No, you're so right. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's really just like me at that moment. Like now you can't mess this up, Des. It's that kind of competitor in me too. Like you can't mess this up. Like you ain't got to be legendary out the gate, but like you ain't got to score an eagle, right? If we still talking golf,
Right, right.
um, I just I'm cool with a par right now, So so like, but at the end of the day, it's like I want to do this beat justice. I got to be up to par. But then finally, with those last two lines, I snap out of it and I realize that like I'm overthinking, not just that I'm overthinking, but why I'm overthinking in the first place. And I've posted this same idea on my Instagram story before. Overthinking is really just like building a home in your head, right? You get so comfortable in your own head. You put your thoughts on a nice futon, you get so comfortable. You got a nice 60-inch TV over the fireplace where you visualize all possible outcomes, like it gets lavish. It
Yep.
gets lavish up in there. Shout out to the overthinkers because it be like that.
Yes, yes, yeah. I am one of those, definitely.
But at the same time, I realized like I'm trying to be all knowing, all controlling, and that's not my job, right? Like that's God's job. So
Right.
when when I'm not in his word, when I'm not getting that constant and consistent repetition of just that positivity, though that's when those feelings are going to start to arise. So that's when I say that's exactly what happens. Those overthinking thoughts, that's what happens when I don't get my dose of daily bread. Again, that's another thing I'll get into in a minute. But that's kind of like the rising action of my verse, right? Kind of what you said, Jarrell. Like again, it kind of fits with your theme, right? Like doing what we learned as like hip hop fans, like you put this much thought into a verse, you put this much love and passion into a verse, and I'm like literally taking you through that process.
Nice.
So then it goes, feed my spirit, the most important meal of the day. So I make the most of the blessing that is today. So this was me nodding to how, all our lives we hear like breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Like that's how we're raised to kind of live, right? So I take that and then like take God himself, how bread represents his body, right? Like I am the bread of life, you know, and then, like, metaphorically speaking, notice what we do with bread, right? What we're trained to do with bread. We eat it, but we share it, right? We break bread too. And I mean, if you look at it from a food perspective, like sandwiches, pizza, all that wouldn't exist without bread. Like bread is
Right.
such a foundational piece. And so if I'm missing my foundational piece, how can I expect to operate in any kind of positivity? So it's spending time with him, spending time in his word, absorbing who he is, right? And that's necessary before I start my day. It will give me everything I need to steward this day that he's given me, right? Make the most of the blessing that's today. And then just continuing to build on that, I end my verse on the other side of overthinking, because I got my peace, my faith, and confidence in God. So, got my light from the source. Now I'm flipping the switch. Kind of another double meaning there. Like I'm energized, right?
Right.
God's light shined on me in my low moment of self doubt. So now mentally and spiritually, I can flip the switch, right? In terms of light, but that also means a change in attitude, and step into who He's created me to be.
Mm.
And then
That
go ahead.
really quick, I was also too like I was wondering, was like, is this like a triple entendre? Because I was thinking like the source, like the hip hop magazine.
I
It's like a
thought about
light
that.
from the source.
Yeah, and I thought about that drill. I was
Yeah.
like, I wonder if I could like, but it's one of those things they say like, if you're gonna write it, you better know how to explain it. And I was like,
Right.
I was like, ooh, that's something I could add, but I just don't know how I want to word it. So I kind of left
Just
it.
guru it, bro. Just I absolutely thought that.
You're right. You're right. I should have claimed that one. I should have.
Guru it. There you go.
Yeah, so that's something to think about as well. But then after that, it's this is what I like to call being spiritually rich, a different kind of wealth, not your common sense. So truthfully, I ain't gotta be common sense. Right now it connects to that first line. Now I
Right.
have my own variation of what Jay-Z did. I kind of gained the riches, but the riches that doesn't have to do with money, a different kind of wealth. That's what makes me realize I don't gotta rap like Common to be dope. Maybe if I be Desmond, I might be even better than Common. Like now that I see myself as the unique individual God made, I can have fun and be secure as Desmond. And again, it's just funny, Jerrell, like as I'm saying this out loud, how much it connects to the themes you had in your verse. Like this is the process it takes. Like you should want to be unique, you know?
Right. Yeah, I like your callback to the common sense callback to it as well. So I'm just like, man, like, yeah,
Yeah, appreciate you.
yeah.
And then it finishes, I was made in his image. That's Godfidence. So every time I'm at the plate, I'm a swing for the fence. Every time I'm at the plate, I'm a swing for the fence. So just like I said, instead of overthinking, now I can take opportunities and give my best, because my validation and confidence doesn't come from outside sources. So again, when I step to the plate, I'm not obsessed with not striking out. I'm confident, I'm at peace knowing that as long as I try my best, I can live with whatever result comes, even if it is striking out. So, when this song drops, I ain't worried about who will like it or who doesn't, who listens, who don't. Like, I'm just happy and grateful that, I cross paths with you, L Summers, and something like this can even happen and reach who it's supposed to reach. So, that was the journey I hope that you can resonate with as you listen to my verse. And, while I end with the hook, I also wanted to point this out, Jarrell, because we didn't even really talk about this,
Mm.
but uh, I know, my hook is kind of like adjusted. I like tweaked it a
Yeah.
little bit, but I kind of pulled that from Respiration. Like Respiration is my favorite hip hop song all time.
Oh, nice.
And most of the song they say sigh before we die, like the last train leaving. But at the end, Most Def changed it to kiss the odds goodbye. I'm on the last train leaving. So I was like, I
Mm.
could kind of try to do something like that. And so I noticed, Jarrell, you were saying some days I want to quit, but it keeps calling me right back,
Yeah.
which to me was like the duality of like, dang, should I just give up? But I love hip hop so much, I can't quit. So then for me, I was like, okay, so maybe I'll say, yet I can't quit. It keeps calling me back, which is essentially the same thing.
Mm.
But like, I felt like mine was more like, I can't quit because I want to be the change in hip hop that I want to see. So
Right.
that's something very subtle. I'm curious to
It's
see
like
if
the
you
action to the
catch.
thought. That didn't even occur to me,
Yeah.
bro. Now
Yeah.
they say it out loud. Okay, no, that's crazy. That's crazy,
Yeah, so
man.
that was just something I wanted to point out. Obviously, in an episode like this, I definitely wanted to point that out because that's something that I think is kind of gonna fly under the radar. And honestly, it was really just me like, okay, well, I'm not gonna curse in my verse, so I just have to change it a little bit. But then it was like, then I thought of that, and I'm like, yo, like we could kind of play with that a little bit and just kind of leave that up to listeners to see how they
Yeah.
feel about it.
No, that's cool, man. No, it's cool too because it's like it's like you take what is relevant or what's connected to you and what you resonate with, and then you transcribe it into your understanding and what and how you want to translate it. And I think it's cool. I think that's really neat, and it's also a testament to just how the themes are really connected, and what you get out of it. Because that's kind of too, as far as like the beauty of music, as far as like what do people get out of this,
Mhm.
And so I dug it. I dug it for real.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Yeah. And honestly, Jarrell, it's one of those things like I know it's like I should say this, but like genuinely, man, like I like this song even more after this breakdown. Like just I feel like again, now that we're able to talk about it and just like go back and forth, like there are so many things that like connected and it is just like well crafted all around, if I
Yeah.
do say so myself. Like
Yeah, same. Hey, unregistered user sent me a beat. We can do another track. It's up to you.
the days again, you know.
Yeah.
What the
The Days Volume 2, I
day-
don't know. But yeah, man. No, yeah, I definitely yeah, every time I listen to this song, it doesn't get old. So
yeah.
just like even just like newly listening to the final mix and whatnot. So yeah, man. I'm really excited to hear what people think about it. And yeah, I hope this isn't the end. I would definitely be down more stuff that resonates with us, more beats resonate with us, kind of create a project. That'd be fire.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's one of those things. That's something I've been wrestling with too. I'm like, dang, is this like tattoos now? Like, I get one and I get a bunch. Like, now it's like, oh, next week Desmond's announcing he did a whole EP in 3 days.
Writing crazy. Oh man, I think that's
But
the nice thing too, is that I mean, you're killing it up to the games, and whatever else you're doing is, what else you're doing in your daily life. So it's like this project, like we can obviously, like, if we decide to do a project, like, can take the time that it needs. I think that's the nice thing about it too. It's like we're not held to a deadline or anything. It's
very
like
true.
when I do my projects, I tend to have like a shorter deadline than what it should be. It's like, why did I put so much pressure on myself to release it when, like, there's no one calling me saying, "Hey, we're gonna release it, Jerrell?" Like, I just put that pressure on myself. But when it comes to like working with other people, it's like, yeah, man, like, let's like take the time we want to take. It's like, yeah, let's make sure that it's what we want versus like just rushing a project. So
Yeah, crock pot food is a little better than the TV dinners.
absolutely, yes.
And Jarrell, we didn't even talk about the cover art. That was something that
Mm,
totally went over my head.
no worries.
But yeah, so as we talk about these themes, I think, Jarrell had his themes, I had my themes, but the biggest theme I think we both took away was like reflection. You're reflecting on the industry, I'm reflecting personally. We're both kind of reflecting on hip hop, our love for hip hop, the state of hip hop. And so that's why when Jarrell he had asked me like what do you have any ideas for the cover art? And immediately I was at work too, and I'm just walking around at work, slow day, and I'm like, wait a minute, like we could play on reflection. And I immediately just like saw a mirror and it was like the days backwards and then the days how it's spelled. And I was like, yo, we could do something with that. And then, you put the cover art together and I thought it was perfect because I think you even kind of played with that in the sense of like you see like the raindrops on the window and it's like, you can kind of see the other side, but then you see the I forget what it's really called, but like you see the right side and then you see the other side and it's like
Yeah,
yeah, and then
yeah.
like the way you worked the text in there, I thought was like dope. So, and even the silhouette of the artist, like, yeah, yeah, I felt
Oh,
like that's
appreciate it, bro.
everything the song is about right there. Yeah.
Appreciate it, bro. Yeah, yeah. I used to do a lot of drawing and stuff when I grew up, and my dad's an artist. And when I started making music, I started really kind of work on like making cover art, like for like my old projects and stuff. And then
Mm,
just started to get better at it, with this app I've been using forever. It used to be called shoot, I forgot what it was originally called. It's now called Studio. It's very similar. It's like Canva.
okay.
But it's just there's so much power, where it's like, yeah, you can do Adobe Photoshop, or you could just use this and be done in a, as long as the resolution is good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just thinking with the reflection of what you did, and I'm like, okay, like I feel that, you know. So yeah, I just utilized that, and I got a lot of I saw a lot of blue as far as listening to the music and
Mm,
hearing, you know, lyrics. Like sometimes I think of like sonic colors, you know, when I'm working on art, you know, and I'm
that's
just
dope.
like, I see
That's
a lot of
dope.
blue and, you know, some type of reflection stuff. So like I found like this flare thing from another like picture from Unsplash and like, you know, switched it up and yeah, man. Yeah. So once I had it, I was like, I think this is it. I was like, I don't
Yeah.
think that's.
Yeah.
I was like, let me send this to Desmond. Just, you know, if he's like, nah, bro. What is like, all right, it's all good. Let's go back to the drawing board. But I'm glad you're like, no, yeah, let's use this. I'm like, bet, you know.
Yeah, I was like, no, that's perfect. Like I said, I was actually impressed how fast you sent it to me too. But I was like, look, like this fits. It fits. Like,
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing that I do. I take pride in is, you know, when I have an idea and I want to execute it, like I really pursue to have it executed. You know, I don't like to wait too long on certain things for me. Again, me putting pressure on myself, but I like to follow through on things, you know, and just like it's like at least I did my part. And if we have to go back, that's fine.
yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
that's kind of how I think through things. So I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, for sure, man. But yeah, so was there any final thoughts about the song you wanted to share, man? Like, I know we reached the end of the breakdown here, but before
Um,
we go into outro
I know
duties.
it's I
Yeah.
know it's coming out. What is it? What did we say on the 9th? This Friday, right? This
Yeah.
Friday.
So so at the time it would be out. It would be out essentially at the time
Oh,
this
okay.
episode drops.
So it's
Yeah.
out now. So it's out
Yeah.
now. Stream away, comment away. If you obviously follow Hip to the Games and follow myself, J Powell Music, and share it through the stories, comment on it. Yeah, and I just hope someone that not only like the song, but they get something from it. You know,
Absolutely.
I think yeah, that's just I think if someone can get something from it, it's even better. You know what I mean? And yeah, hopefully it's not the last thing we work on.
For sure. For sure, bro. For sure. Well, that means we've made it to the end of another breakdown. Man, Jarrell, I know it's just one song, but I want to thank you, bro, like for even wanting to do the song, for even wanting to talk about it on the pod, like sharing your musical origin and allowing us to get to know you as an artist and a creator and just being all what H2DG is all about, man. Like just the passionate, genuine fandom for hip hop and just trying to follow the footsteps of those that came before us, just like I tell everybody, man, like Nipsey said, he made it because he didn't quit. So if you quit, you'll never realize your potential. So J Powell, keep going, bro, whether that's hip hop, jazz, whatever. Keep giving this world your gift and letting it shine, just like your verse said, man. Like keep doing your thing. And speaking of course, before you go, just one more time, let our listener here know how they can support you. Just plug anything you want to, bro. Let them keep up with all your work in and outside music.
I appreciate it, man. Well, first of all, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And you can follow me at J Powell Music on Instagram. I would just say follow me on J Powell Music because you can find everything else there when it comes to what I'm working on from music wise, when it comes to just like a band or instrument stuff or rapping or whatever else. That's just really my main go-to site right now. I don't do a lot. I don't do TikTok unless it's for like my podcasts. But J Powell Music, you can find all my podcast stuff through the link in the bio for the Instagram. So just follow at J Powell Music. And yeah, thank you, Preston. I'm sorry. Why did I call you Preston? See, Preston's
Wait,
ruining
I
everything
thought
because
I thought it was
he's
crazy. I
connect.
thought it was genuine. I thought it
He's
was
in
genuine.
this room in the Zoom somewhere.
I,
No. Th- thank you, Desmond. Thank you, Desmond, for this opportunity, man. I was really looking forward to this and definitely humbled. You're taking a huge responsibility on just when it comes to just really breaking down hip hop in its entirety and how like special it is and breaking down these things and realizing a lot of the stuff isn't just happenstance. Like these are artists that are making art and you're really
yeah, man.
projecting that to people and that's a big responsibility and I think you're doing an amazing job and
Thank you,
continue to
bro.
do what you do, man. We need platforms like this. So I appreciate you representing the culture.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Um, And of course, here's to another celebration of the God-gifted brilliance of hip hop's past and present, or I guess I should say hip hop's present in this case. And big ups once again to my guy Jay Powell. Shout out L Summers as well for their artistry and joining the show. And of course, here's a huge shout out to you as well for being hip to the games. And I thank you so much for sticking around for another episode, all for the best combo there is. Peace out and God bless. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Hip to the Games, and if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit up the socials at Desmond Powell _ and at Hip to the Games on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok so you don't miss out on the fun. And please follow or subscribe to the show and leave a review on the podcast platform you're on right now, as your support is greatly appreciated.